Hey guys, this is Trevor Probant. This is the Land Investing Dirt Road to Wealth podcast. Today is, I think, March 3rd on a Friday, and we've got another guest. I think this is like 5 podcasts with guests, so that's exciting. That's a whole handful, which is awesome. This is Jason Casco, who is one of the members of our master class, but also a fellow Red Raider. Even though he's from California, we still say he's okay.
Hey, I don't claim California.
So, Jason, kind of give everybody a pretty quick background, what you're doing, where you're from, kind of what's your degree, the whole family stuff, and then also how you found land and found us.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me on the show. Man, I kind of bounced around a lot growing up. I was born in California. We lived in Oregon, Hawaii, Texas. So I've got to grow up kind of all over. Ended up transferring to Texas Tech. Absolutely loved it. Between there and A&M, I was studying mechanical engineering at the time, and saw how cultish A&M was. And when I went to Tech, everyone loved me and was super nice. So I was like, this is the place for me. So if you're an Aggie, sorry, calling a spade a spade.
I'm married to one.
So you get it. You get the crazy. But yeah, man, I just typical kid out of college, pursued money and took the corporate gig. And
so did you graduate with an engineering degree?
So not technically, no. I was studying mechanical engineering. I worked every summer. I did internships. I worked in oil and gas, worked on a frac crew, on a pump side, did all that during school. Yep. And then when I was close to graduating, because of the way the credits broke down, it was going to take me basically another year and a half to graduate. And the company that wanted to hire me said, you have more experience than half the people working here. Just get out. So I grabbed the general studies degree, which is just basically 3 minors. So I basically 3 minors in mechanical engineering, math, and then I had to grab one more. So I grabbed history because I'm a history nerd, and got out and started working in the...
Who did you get work for?
A company called Pico Facet. It got bought out by Parker Hannifin probably 5 or 6 years ago. So did that for a little while. Wasn't in love with it. Changed to commercial HVAC.
Why? Why weren't you in love with it? Tell everyone why you weren't in love with it. Tell everybody what being on a frac spread's like and all that.
Yeah. So, and I did the frac thing during the summer and on the weekends as an intern. So I knew I'd actually got offered that frac engineering job out of college and turned it down, despite it being double the income of the engineering job I ended up taking. So worked for some great people. Actually, I live in Fort Worth, and I was driving an hour west to Mineral Wells. Loved everyone I worked with. It was just a limited capacity for me to grow my income.
Yep.
Because
so
of the
that was during the Barnett when everything was chugging along on that.
It was crazy. I was getting calls out of the blue for $100,000 to $300,000 vessels for oil and gas filtration type stuff. Not even having to bid some jobs. It was kind of crazy. So great people, great experience, but realized really quickly that the cap was there and I was never going to make the kind of money I wanted. So I actually took a job doing commercial HVAC. I had to move to Wisconsin for 6 months, and then ended up my territory ended up being in West Texas. So I ended up back in Lubbock, of all places, for 5 or 6 years there. Good company, not a great environment for me to be in. Expectation was, while not letter of the law, expectation was you're going to be there super early, you're going to be there really late. And if I left at 6 or 7 p.m., everyone's like, why are you leaving early? Kind of place.
And those people came from corporate, or they come from
no. I want to be clear. I don't want there to be any lawsuits. No, that is the expectation of the teammates that I was with, which is fine. That was their life, and they made a ton of money. But after having my son, there was nights I was getting home, and the only time I saw him was the 10 minutes before he went to bed.
I used to do that on the surgical side, right? Especially doing trauma. I did both total joints and trauma, and I would leave at 6 a.m. and I'd get home at 10 or 11 p.m. and I never saw my kids awake.
And I had a really good manager, and he said, "Hey, go home. Like you need to be there for them." But it was clear to me that if I was doing that, it was putting a lot of stress on the relationship with the people that I worked with, because they were doing that time and the effort, and that was the expectation. And when I first took that job, I could do that, but after having kids, that shifted, and it really wasn't
with
fair
no
to them.
dependents, no whatever, single dude, absolutely, yeah. Show me that money, and how much were those guys making? Like,
A lot.
that
A lot.
But, I mean,
multi six figure. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so that's also something that we can talk about later on. But like, there's a lot of that when it comes to, I'm even in your land business, right? Or whatever that is. I'm working 14 hours a day. I'm building this thing and I'm doing it all for my family.
Yep.
It's the crutch that we say it's on, but we're never there.
This
You know
is
what I
the
mean?
exact conversation I had with my wife. I came home one night and she kind of looked at me and she was like, why are you putting in so much time? And like, what is this for? And I was like, well, it's for you guys. And she said, no, it's not. And I was like, well, what do you mean? She's like, well, if it's for us, that would equal time with us. And it made me step back and realize, you know what? This is more about me than it is you. Yes, I want to provide. Of course, that's a driving factor, but the drive to be successful and be in the top and do all of that and stay the extra hours and do all the stuff wasn't for them. That was for me. I wasn't in some tight spot where I had to make money. This was excess money. So I took a step back and I said, you know what? You're exactly right. And basically decided to make a jump from corporate and start my own business. Now, I've been a finance nerd for forever, and I was finding that a lot of my time in the office was actually people coming to me or discussions about finance anyway. So I was helping them build their 401ks out and do all the stuff. And I was like, this is so dumb. I enjoy doing that so much more than the job I'm in. And then I'm telling them to go do all the stuff, and then they go sit down with some financial advisor who sells them a bunch of crap. I was like, why? I'm already doing the work. Why not just stick with what I love? I'll go start this business. So I talked to my wife about it, and she said, she's like, I would rather you do that, be happy with what you do, be able to control your time, be home. And I don't care if you make $40,000 a year. I was making a lot more than that at the time, but she's like, I'd rather you make $40,000 a year and be home and be present. And I said, let's do it. So now I didn't know, I made the jump back to Fort Worth and I started, a financial planning practice, and I didn't know it would be in February of 2020, right before COVID. So the first 6 months of my business was half the things were shut down and trying to do virtual meetings and all that. But that's what led to me doing that. One of the partners in the firm really took me under his wing, and I set an appointment with a brokerage, a real estate brokerage. And, I was sitting down going, they're not a traditional planning type client. And I was talking to the partner. I was like, how do we help them accomplish what they want? Because the standard planning stuff doesn't seem like it would work. And he said, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's specialized planning for people who like real estate and want to do that and are making money in real estate. And he made a presentation on infinite banking. And at the end of that, it was the first time I had heard it. And I sat back and I talked to him afterwards, and I was like, why am I not doing that?
Where the hell did this come from?
Yeah. He goes, you should be. And I was like, I ran the math 7 different ways, and I was like, this only benefits what I'm doing. He said, absolutely right. So I got into infinite banking that way. And then it was like, okay, well, where do I personally put my money? I didn't necessarily want to be in single family with all the issues with tenants. I had a bad taste in my mouth from my family running into problems in Hawaii with the rental that they had, having basically carried 2 mortgages because that state favors renters. So I was like, I don't know where to put this. I need to find that. And I probably passed over land 3 or 4 times because the numbers that people threw out, I was like, that's a lie. There's no way that kind of stuff is accurate. There's no way you can get that kind of return. That's
ridiculous.
That's all garbage. But I kept coming back to it because I just wasn't happy. Multifamily in Texas is so competitive. Single family can be so competitive.
Especially in DFW.
Especially here, right? Yeah, I'm in DFW, yep. Obviously. It's like everybody.
I can find a bunch of really cheap rent houses out in my neck of the woods.
And I would look, West Texas is, I love the people in West Texas. I love my time in Lubbock. That market is different. But, out here, it's like all of your neighbors flip houses. My grandma is flipping, this whole, it's like everybody in their mom is a wholesaler.
My grandma sells bandit signs. And he's got 6 cold collars in the Philippines. Yeah.
Grandma Sally Mae is chewing someone out for, not wanting to sell to them at half price. So, I just looked at that world and I was like, I just got out of the grind. Like, I don't want to go back to it to put my money into some grind associated thing. And so, I read a couple books on land and I was like, I don't think this is true. I need a proof of concept. And so looking back, this is so stupid. This should not have worked. I sent a 300 count mailer and I ended up getting 3 properties back.
Where like little bit cheap stuff and wherever, or like what was your
yeah. So I avoided the desert stuff. I just, from a fundamental level, I looked at what a lot of people were doing from the basics of what I've heard on podcasts and everything else. And that year I listened to 16,000 minutes of podcasts, mostly on land. So some of your stuff, some of, Justin Adams stuff, some of everything I can get a hold of, every single guru, whatever. I listened to every podcast I could on land. And I said, all right, I'll test this out. So I hit yours is the best, obviously.
Yes,
yeah,
obviously.
Of course.
Hey, man.
You can pay me later for that. Now we hit Otero. I'll just share
by itself. So
yeah. So I'll just share. We hit Otero County. Being my wife is from Midland, and I knew the West Texas folks, and they love to go up to Ruidoso and Cloudcroft type area. That's their playground.
And so, everybody from New Mexico hates us because we're always the Texans that come in and Oh, I know. Yep.
But
I've fallen down the stairs of the jockey club before. I know.
So we got 3 little properties out there, and they were small. It was like buy it 300, sell it 1,000 type stuff. But I was like, okay, this works, but I don't want to build this massive machine. I'm going to end up needing all these VAs, and I'm going to have to do freaking 30 of those to make the kind of income that I want out of land. And the infinite banking thing helps because double rate of return, same dollar type stuff. But I was just sitting there going, I just left the corporate machine. I don't want to create one. And so that's when it kind of clicked of, well, can you do less deals, more margin? And at that time, this is middle of COVID, a neighbor of mine had several rent houses, and he came to me and said, hey, I see what you're doing with land. Can you help me do that in Fort Worth? Because it would be cheaper and a better deal for me to build new, and I get a better rate of return on my money. Can you help me do that? And you can keep one deal, or we'll split some profit or whatever. We'll figure it out. And I said, sure.
Yep.
I was like, I don't know if that'll work in an urban area. We'll give it a go.
Mm-hmm.
So we sent 1,800 mailers. We ended up getting 3 deals under contract. The first one, we bought it $25,000 and put it on MLS. It sold a week later, 10-day close at $65,000. And I walked away with an almost $18,000 check. I had no money in it. I helped pay for the marketing. That was it. And I was like, he looked at me and he's like, can we do this? Like, can this is better than a rent house. Can we do this? And I was like, yeah, I think we can do this. So that was kind of the birth of really like my Texas business and going after, more high value stuff.
But you started with infill lots is what you're saying.
That one happened to be an infill lot. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've evolved since then. Large acreage, and then obviously joining the Subdivide masterclass with you guys has been good. So my mentality is, get one skill set under control and not necessarily on autopilot, but running smoothly. And now you can add different arms to the business. And man, we've just been running with that. And we were talking about this earlier. Everything looks like a highlight reel when you share a story like that. There's a lot of lessons along the way. There's issues. I mean, even this last week, I feel like everybody kind of got hit all at the same time with their problems. But
yeah. Well, and what he's talking about, guys, is we on the Subdivide Masterclass, we've got calls 3 days a week. And Wednesday of this week, there was lots of people that dealt with lots of small to large to medium-sized blows to their business all at the same time, and we were kind of laughing because it was almost ridiculous how many things go wrong when you're actually doing the business, right? Not what you're reading on some or listening to on some podcast, reading some ebook, or watching a Facebook Live where someone's trying to sell you how to have the next 12 VAs or the next, texting system or whatever. Like, you still have to do the effing work and embrace that, right? Like that's the difference. And thank the good Lord that you're the one that still has to do the work, and you still have to eat some shit sandwiches sometimes, things like that. Because if it was easy, we would not have the margins.
Yeah. And I think that's the marker of a true business, right? If a deal falls apart like mine did the other day, if your business hinges on one deal, you don't have a business, you have wishful thinking. Right? Like
absolutely. You got a hobby. Yep. Absolutely.
And the other thing I would say is you're going to learn more about yourself and your business in those moments than probably any other time. And look, this is true in every aspect of life. I don't care whether it's diet or whether it's exercise or running your business. You're going to have ups and downs. And in those ups and downs is when you're going to do you have the discipline to see things through and to get it done right? Do you have the people you can reach out to? The ability for us to sit down and be like, hey, this deal's falling apart. Join a call with you and these other guys and be like, here's the situation. Here's what I think are the options. And then maybe even get outside perspective is huge. But I think that highlight reel, I hate it. Man, I hate it. People paint every industry as it's so easy and there's never any problems. And I would much rather hear, hey, how did you react when things didn't go your way? Did you sit and wallow in self-pity for a whole day? And, look, we had a deal that was going to net us almost 300,000 that we're trying to rescue that now maybe only will net us 80. But, that's
still a good yearly salary for lots of people in this world.
It is. That's more than my engineering salary was out of school. I mean, I think I made $55,000 as an engineer my first year out of college, right? So it's still more than that. But, people may sit there and go, oh, this thing blew up, and they're going to sit there and wallow in it. And it's like, man, give yourself the 5 minutes to be angry, pissed, whatever. But what do you do when it really matters?
Give yourself a day. Go do whatever you need to, and then put your big boy pants or big girl pants on and start the next day.
Get it done. Well, and have I'll call it like a brotherhood. Like the guys that we run with, they're all the same mindset. They're all ambitious. We're all very driven. So to have guys like that have been through it already is super helpful as well.
And it is a little bit of a therapy session, right? Like these calls, like even when things go bad and you end up with egg on your face, you can actually talk to people that actually know what the hell you're talking about versus just complaining to your buddy or your wife or husband or whatever, and they have no idea, right? Like that right there, just to get it off your chest and be able to explain everything through in the jargon and the understanding and all that we all speak this kind of the same language. It's dumb, but it's really important psychologically for sure.
Yeah. Look, you're gonna, the hardship is certain. Right, the easy stuff maybe isn't. The hardship is certain. Can you deal with it? Do you have the support to deal with it? And then as you get better and better in this business, I mean, self-development is always, I think, key, right? Can you step back from a situation that your business is in and recognize what's going on and take a step back and be like, man, I'm being pissed about this. I can control X. I can't control Y. So why am I going to be pissed about Y when I have no say anyway? Yep. I can control X. I'm going to do what I can do, and the chips are going to fall where they fall. And so I learn more about people and their business when things go wrong than when they go right.
1,000,000%. And you'll realize who you want to do business with and who you don't want to do business with in a hurry.
Yeah.
We've got a deal that's going absolutely fantastic, and there's still one of the partners, and I'm just like, I don't really want to work with them anymore. You know what I mean?
But that's important to know, right? It's easy to be good when things are easy.
And the beautiful thing about our business is it's a project by project deal. It's a deal by deal thing. We're not going into business forever, right? Like Jason and I aren't coming in and building widgets and hoping for an IPO, right? Or a venture capital sellout, right? That's the thing that I love about our business is it is that way. The thing I hate about our business is it is that way. You know what I mean? Like you don't, and that's what, we've had lots of conversations about here lately is it's talking about, okay, what is the exit, right? Because I can't sell Trevor Inc., right? I can't sell Trevor Inc. This is my quote unquote business because there's let's talk about Masterclass. You have already figured out that there is a whole lot of art to a good subdivide, right? There's a whole lot of art to a good force appreciation play.
And my engineering brain hates it.
And thank God, because Blackstone would come in and buy all of it if he could just put it into a damn spreadsheet. You know what I mean? Like, thank God. Because that's the kind of stuff, like, you've got to understand and be okay with that. Like, you've got to understand, like, the gray is also where the suck is, but it's also where the opportunity is, right? And so I can tell you, Jason, this is how I would underwrite this deal and say you wanted to come work for me. And I could say, okay, I've got 3 analysts. They're bringing me deals. I got brokers, we're making offers on every single thing out there, right? It's kind of like our conversation earlier, right? They're like, oh, there's no way in hell I'm going to sell for that. They're going to sell for that price, but bring me an offer. How many deals could you do if that's all you did, right? Like you had 2 young guys or gals or whatever it is, or even Philippine people or whatever, and you show them exactly how you do it. You spent 6 months, and I've thought about this, right? Spend 6 months just hammering with them, just teaching them how to do all this stuff. You can get pretty damn close. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then you just make qualified offers after qualified offers after qualified offers. That's still not a sellable business. You know what I mean?
You have to remove you from the equation to make it sellable, which is hard.
Absolutely. And I don't know how to do that in that aspect, right? And the same thing with like wholesaling houses or doing a house flipping business or things like this. Like, it doesn't really sell. You know what I mean? And so that's that opportunity. You're like, well, what does that mean? So now, talking about, well, how do you have a capital event, right? Do you build enough inventory? You build all these notes. You have, you force all this appreciation, then you buy the notes, and then you hypothecate it, and then you take that, and you take those, and you sell them, and you there's so many different ways of doing it. It's just, it's one of those things that's a good thing and the bad thing about our business is, yeah, you can build systems to do flips and, buy these and owner finance them or buy, some little lots in Florida, sending text messages and have a broker and buy them and do all this other stuff. It's still not a business. You know what I mean? It's better. It's better than you doing all the work, but it's still not truly a business, right? You can't be like, I'm out of here for 6 months. At least I can't. Maybe one.
Yeah. I've seen it done, and I've actually seen a business model like that try to be sold on the marketplace on like the buy biz type websites.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the issue with those is maybe it is sellable if you can replace yourself, but the problem is without you and the knowledge and it being able to pivot, it's going to fall behind on the times, right? I mean, we know this because we're in the industry day to day. Mail rates have changed. Ways that you get in contact with owners have changed, and it will continue to change, right? Ways that we underwrite deals or how we maybe even partner with landowners, like all that stuff needs to be pivoted over time. And if someone is not at the helm that understands that, if it's just the work being done and that's what you're trying to sell, maybe you can sell it, but to me, it's not a business that's going to last long.
No, not in my opinion, Speaking of that, right? Like speaking of learning to pivot, learning to do these things and being in it all the time, what are you seeing with what you're doing? Like, what are some of the misconceptions that people still throw out there on land that are changing in the last, since you started listening to podcasts in 2020, right? Some of us have been at this a lot longer. We definitely have seen a big change. But like, what have you seen that was different, whether that was from the get-go or now, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, all the basic pushback that you see from people who don't understand this market would be land can't cash flow. It's illiquid. It's higher risk. Those sorts of things are like the basic, what I call like newbie objections to getting into this niche. I've just found every single one of those to be the exact opposite, right? I don't have to worry about electrical or foundation issues or flooding or a tenant wrecking something. Like the worst case scenario is my property gets flooded or burned, in which case it's still dirt.
Yeah.
And then cash flow, I do see a lot of these TikTok posts about, well, you can just, I can buy a little piece of desert in Joshua Tree and rent it out to campers and make $1,500 a month, and like stuff like that's just not true either. Half the stuff you need permits for, and it never works out like they say. So I see stuff like that. Look, mail rates have changed. It used to be, again, my first mailer was 300 letters and I got 3 deals out of it. If you get that kind of response, something went wrong nowadays.
And that's 2+ years ago. Much less compared to 6 or 7 whenever I started doing this.
Yeah, and I mean even little things, right? We were talking about this recently with even looking at stuff and underwriting for subdivides. Like these brokers are listing stuff, whether at the request of the seller or just because they think they can get it. They're listing it, 500 acres as if it were cut into 2-acre lots already without any of the work, money, capital put in. And people are buying it, which is what's crazier.
That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
This 2% money to buy dirt, right? Like, there's some of these REITs and things like this that get, for self-storage or A-class or stuff like this, right? And that's just a wealth preservation kind of deal. But where they get it for dirt, I don't have no idea. No idea.
Yeah, I mean, you do have some of these hedge funds come in that are just looking at a couple points of portfolio, and so it doesn't ultimately matter. So you're never going to compete with someone like that. Or I had a deal fall apart recently where a developer offered essentially double what I had offered on a property. And I ran the math 7 ways to Sunday. Like he's basically operating on like a 10 or 12% profit margin, assuming nothing goes wrong. So I just look at stuff like that and I'm like, well, if that's where things are going, I'm not going to be part of that because that's not what I want to be in anyway. But the other thing,
speak of that, like Jason, where are you and where are you kind of working, right? Like that will give a lot of people some idea of what the hell you're running into.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in several states, but my main state that I operate in is actually my backyard here in DFW and surrounding counties. And I mean, you get anywhere near one of these, whether that, and I'd say the what I call the triangle of growth between Houston, Austin, and DFW is just a zone of hyper competitive. Everything is crazy. Everything is growing and overpriced, in my opinion, markets. And so, I mean, you talk about pivoting. That market was great a year ago, 2 years ago. But we're starting to recognize if people are offering the type of stuff where they're operating on that slim a margin, it's time to move on and start hitting other areas. So this is why selling a business would be difficult, is if you're just selling the people doing the work and they just keep doing the same work you've always done. Like our business has shifted drastically from that first 300 round mailer to today. So how do you do that without someone having the experienced eyes at the helm? I don't think you can. Not a lasting business anyway. And then the other thing that I see in the land space, and I think this will be the biggest problem for the successful land people I see today, is number one, we're chasing deals constantly. That's how we create income. You can create notes, but those end eventually too. So how do you, in this business, this is just the financial planner in me coming out, looking forward 20 years from now, 15 years from now, whenever you want to choose to slow down or even choose to stop working, how do you do that?
Massive heart attack.
Well, yeah, your wife gets all the life insurance, right? But no, I mean, that's where something like, I'm like, guys, this is where something like infinite banking, I think, makes sense for this niche. It's thinking through these things from a business perspective. Can I build an asset alongside the work that I'm doing so that one day, if I cannot sell my business, how do you stop or slow down? And I've asked this to, I mean, there's guys who are hyper successful in your mastermind group when we sat down and talked about it, and they're like, I have no idea. How do I stop? And the answer is you can't.
I know my deal is, I mean, I'll never stop because I love this too much, right? But slowing down. But the thing is that's where, like, my deal, like, even right now I'm looking at a deal in Tyler, like with Kyle that sent some stuff over, things like that. Like, my whole plan is to buy it by the dirt and then develop commercial and multifamily.
Yeah.
And then I own that from day one. I buy it from the dirt. I get paid twice. Build long-term cash flow on it, right? Like, that's long-term debt. Allow that to pay, because that's how rich people do it, right?
Yep.
They have their earned income,
their assets,
buy their stuff, right? And the thing is right now you got to earn a whole shitload of earned income to buy that kind of stuff.
That's basically.
I'm not talking about putting in syndications either. I'm talking about you owning that bitch. You know what I mean?
This is the filter I view everything. I don't, infinite banking is not a good fit for everybody, but whether it's real estate or this or the combination of or whatever asset it is, the way I view anything, the filter I give it is, I'm putting a dollar somewhere. What is that earning me either today or tomorrow?
Yep.
It needs to be a combination of things of today and tomorrow because you need earned income. But in that example, are you able to go get a piece of land at maybe less than market value, and now you can get a new construction loan with the equity that's in the land, and you have basically no money out of pocket to get an asset that's going to be cash flowing? Well, that's brilliant. Why would you not? Right. And you can start stacking stuff like that. I think the hard part, at least for me, is how do you not get the shiny object syndrome? And to me, it's like, okay, you need to master your craft in one area, get that running smoothly, and then you can add different things. That becomes difficult because each one of those things needs to pivot slightly over time. And so it can get to be a lot. I think that's hard for people. I don't think it'll ever stop being hard. It's just a matter of the business and figuring out how to do that.
Well, again, like we talked about, if it was easy, everybody would do it. As my uncle always likes to say, if it was easy, little girls in skirts would be millionaires, Like, tough shit. Like
that's the joy and hardship of being a business owner and an entrepreneur, right? Is figuring that stuff out as you go. I enjoy it. It's a challenge because for me, failure is sitting still, right? If I'm not learning more, if I'm not progressing, if I'm not pushing things to the edge, to me, it's like I'm failing because that's not doing better than it was. I don't care whether it's a relationship, whether it's the business, whatever.
That's because we're all messed up, Jason. Seriously.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the deal. Like the whole contentment deal, it doesn't happen for people like us, right? Like there's always going to be something you can be, or maybe you can be content at one time, but never satisfied. Whatever you want, however you want to say that, right? Like you can be happy with where you're at and where you've come, but there's always that urge. There's always that clock. There's always that ticking saying, now what?
Yeah, now you sound like Joey Mack at Texas Tech football. What's next, right? What's next?
Yeah. But I mean, that's true, right? Like if you any high achiever, I don't give a shit who it is, right? And business and whatever it is, like that's what they are obsessed with, right? Like that's what they love. That's what they do, and they're there to be the best version of them, whatever that is. And if you don't have that, good luck, because I'm going to beat your ass in the marketplace.
Well, and look, here's the, I shared at the beginning, I got out of that corporate deal because of all the focus on that and the lack of focus where it should have been, which was family and time with kids. So here's the even harder decision for people who are driven like that is, can you consciously choose for your business not to progress at the highest level because you're willingly sacrificing that and you know it?
You can be world class. You can be absolutely world class in one thing. If you put everything you have into it, you can be world class in land investing, world class in any business deal, right? Like I can't be LeBron, right? Like I never had that chance, right? I can be world class in one thing and sacrifice everything else. My health, my family, you know what I mean? Like you can be world class if you commit yourself 14 hours a day into doing that and being absolutely obsessed with that, right? Like whether that's infinite banking, whether that is land, whether that is TikTok dance, whatever, right? Like if you want to do it, is one thing, and you can be really, really good at two things. Beyond that, I don't know how. You can.
Yep.
That one of my favorite sayings in the entire world is, you can be anything you want to in this life. You can't be everything you want to be in this life. And that has stuck with me for a long, long time.
Yeah. Or, I heard the saying a lot, right? Choose your hard.
Yep.
So yeah, make sure you're choosing wisely. What's my kids care more about me today, choosing them and having time with them, than me selling another deal to make an extra $30,000 for the family.
100%.
And so I'm good with that, especially 0 to 4. I mean, my kids are not in school and you get to spend the most amount of time with them. To me, it's like, yeah, this is why I left anyway. I need to make sure I keep that perspective. And yeah, I can put more time into the business, kill myself on it when that's not the case anymore. But
yeah,
choose what's important.
Yeah, Jason. So you mentioned infinite banking. What as a basic deal, explain that. I've kind of heard of it, but it's all woo-woo bullshit in my opinion. Like if it has Wall Street tied to it, I don't want anything to do with it most of the time. But I'm open to learning. So kind of explain that to us.
So this is actually anti-Wall Street, which is what I love about it.
Perfect.
Right. This is the same strategy that the Rockefellers used, that Walt Disney used to purchase the land for Disney, that JCPenney used to keep the lights on during the Great Depression. Basically, it's using a specially designed whole life insurance policy to make your costs extremely low, to be able to stuff it full of cash. You can then borrow against that cash. It never leaves the policy. Basically, the insurance company puts a lien against it and they give you their money. And now you can get 2 rates of return with that same dollar. So let's say I've got $100,000 that I can borrow against. Maybe I take $50,000 out to go buy a property. My $100,000 is still growing. I go do my deal and I put the money back, and you can just cycle it like that as you go. So that thing is growing over here while you're doing your deals. And when you're done,
so the insurance company is the bank, right? Like that's what they're doing, right? Because they're able to use more of your money to do other things in order for you to get your rate of return. But they also have enough. Because insurance companies, right? Whatever, not neither here nor there. But like, not only the biggest scam in the world, but they also have tons and tons of cash all the time.
All the time. They have to, by law, have to have enough to pay out all their all their death benefit and everything that goes on
Yep.
with that. So it's a private contract. It's protected from creditors, all the things that I think are really cool and safe, but specifically whole life because it gives you the guarantees. You know it's going to grow. It's contractually obligated to grow.
So what's like the bad thing about it, right? Like what's the bad thing?
Yeah, pros and cons to everything, right? The bad thing is if your sight is down, in other words, if you are just so focused on what's the best thing for me this 1 year, or maybe like over the next 18 months, then this will never make sense to you because this is a long-term play and everything has opportunity costs, right? So there is costs for the death benefit that needs to come into this. And so, it depends on the policy and everything, but basically it may mean me doing one less deal in year 1 or year 2, right? But then 3, 4, whatever, how many years down the road that there's a crossover point at which this thing takes over and now you can actually do more. And so if you're short-sighted, this is never going to make sense. If you are not a disciplined person with your money, in other words, you're not a good saver, number one, I wouldn't let you to do it. But if I tell you about this and you're like, Jason, this thing is the best thing in the world. I want to save $100,000 a year into this thing. And I go, Trevor, great. How much do you save now? And you go, $10,000.
I've got $12.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Not going to get me there.
I'll get you a cheeseburger at In-N-Out or something. I don't know.
Anyway, sorry.
But no, the cons of this thing is if you're not a disciplined person and you're married to this thing, right? You have to basically be married to this strategy for the rest of your life. So if you cannot commit to that, or if you're short-sighted with your goals or views, this will never make sense.
Which is true with any wealth creation period. I don't give a shit what it is, bro. Like even selling, sneakers online or something like that. Like that's not, I don't know of any. There's no such thing as a get rich this side of lotto, right? Right? Like, even music and sports and all this other stuff. Yeah, they spent 15, 20 years busting their ass for free. You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, look how much these guys get paid, $40 million a year to play football or basketball or whatever. But they've also been dribbling the ball and throwing the football since they were 3. Like that's no one's an overnight success. But that's really the biggest downfall or biggest con.
Yeah, or people who want to treat this like a credit card, right? This needs to be treated like a bank. I'm going to be real clear that is not a bank, right? You are using the insurance companies. Yes, it's the equity that you have, but it's the insurance company's money. But if you want to treat this like a credit card and you're not going to be paying it back and you're not going to be an honest banker, then this is not going to work for you either. This works best for things that you can either produce cash flow or some kind of equity or return, because then you could put the money back or it can cash flow back to repay the loan that you took while it's growing. So that's where it makes the most sense. And if you're not going to use it in that way, I wouldn't design it that way. It wouldn't make sense.
So let's do an example here, right? So if I gave you $100,000 to get started, right? And I wanted to take 50 of it out to buy multiple different notes, right? Land notes. Okay. And then that allows me to have what percentage are these paying out, right? Like you're talking about getting paid both ways. What's kind of the average percent that you're still going to get paid on that 100,000? Like what is that?
Yeah. So it's going to shift a little bit year to year, but somewhere in the 3 to 5% range. So nothing crazy. And some of that comes from a non-guaranteed dividend, right? So these will be contractually obligated to give you some set rate of return. Mm-hmm. And then some part, these are mutual companies you use for this. So buying a policy makes you basically an owner in the business and they would pay you out a dividend. You were talking about insurance being a scam. What's kind of crazy is people don't realize like term insurance only pays out less than 2%. Sometimes people estimate less than 1% of the time. Like insurance companies are money making machines.
Yeah,
they are with stuff like that. And
I drive like an old man, and like, I pay plenty of money just for fucking cars, right?
Right.
Like, yeah, I get it.
So, yeah, I mean, you're looking for companies that have been around for 100 years that have always paid out dividends, even during the Great Depression, things like that. That's who we use. But it'll be some combination of the guaranteed growth plus a non-guaranteed dividend. So in that example, right? And it's hard to give you numbers. I don't know your health rating. I don't know all the stuff. Let's just assume you have 100,000 in cash value in there.
Yep.
So you borrow, let's say 50,000 and you go buy notes, right? Your loan may be at 5%, but you bought a bunch of notes that are returning, let's call
15.
it a 15% yield, right?
Yep.
Maybe when you're done. So not only do you have the growth, and there's a spread between your loan rate and your return, right? You're talking about net 10 basically, but your 100,000 continues to grow as if no money ever left, because it didn't. The insurance company just put a lien against it and gave you their money. So you get both rates of return, which actually bumps up your yield much, much higher.
Yeah. Yep. That allows you to still keep the slow, which is still better than anything else. Well, I mean, I guess T-bills right now are pretty good, but most of the time they're less than 1.9% or, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But
it's wrapped
right?
up. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's wrapped up and you can't touch it. And
Absolutely. And so that allows you to keep that, right? Hopefully, you know, in most worlds, keep inflation at bay, which is still pretty good. And then also to be able to use it in other ways whenever you have that deal that comes across, right?
Yeah, and we're at today. Inflation is interesting, right? To me, it's like let's keep our dollars as relevant as possible. So even if you don't think of it as a rate of return, it's like, where can we put this in a safe spot where, and like, this is guaranteed, like, at least a portion of it is, right?
Well, that's actually like the couple that just bought those 2 tracks over at Stove Canyon there in Sutton County. They bought them all cash, right? And what they're doing right now is they're going to get a line of credit on, and actually they bought it because it was cash, so they got a little better deal. So they're actually getting a line of credit from their bank up to like 80% of that deal there. And the cool thing is one, that keeps their powder, quote unquote, powder dry. You know, whenever they do find that lake house or that beach house that they've all been talking about, right? In order to get it bought, and then they can do whatever, use it as collateral, whatever that may be. But also by owning the dirt, they're staying above inflation, right? Because that dirt is staying higher and higher. It's just the way it is, especially in Texas, right? Like, you got dirt in Texas, it's beating inflation every single time, right? And so it's a play, just kind of like what you're talking about, right? It's a kind of a being able to double dip, and then also to have that hopefully that inflation play, but then also to be able to have your powder dry when that deal does come along and you need to buy, you know, $60,000 deal that's worth 120, and you're ready to rock and roll.
Yep. Yeah, to be able to leverage
that's the key to that, is because you actually have access to it versus a damn CD or some bullshit, like, you know what I mean? Or one way.
Yeah, and I think the biggest difference as well, because people go, well, I can do that with my 401k, right? I can go, or my investment account, I can go leverage. Usually it's about 50 to 60% of the portfolio value. And I'm like, well, yeah, you can, but they dictate the terms. They tell you the interest rate, the repayment schedule, and if that account falls below that certain margin value, you instantly have to go cover it. The thing with these policies that's really nice is if you have a good person who's helping you underwriting it and helping you take those loans and do all the things that you're going to do, you get to control the repayment. They're going to give you the interest rate, and they say you repay this however you want. So it may make sense for you to sit something in an asset for a while and not repay it for a while. And in fact, later on in life, if you were to use this in retirement, you can take a loan, you can live on it, and we will design it in such a way at that point in time, well, you know how much dollars you can take out so this thing doesn't lapse. It's because nothing ever left.
And,
right?
and that's the key, right? Like, because you've got, and that goes back to that discipline, right? And putting that money away.
Yep.
And doing all that stuff and continuing to live that disciplined life. But again, at least you have an asset sitting there for you.
You're going to be saving somewhere anyway. So
Yep.
to me, people have a trouble with the loan thing. And it's like, okay, let's take a vacation, for example. Let's say you save $200 a month for vacation. Okay, well, you're going to go spend that money at the end of the year, and then what are you going to do? Save that $200 a month again. And so to me, it's like, I don't have a problem with the loan thing because number one, my money's growing, but I was going to save it again anyway and go do it again. At least this way, I'm not giving someone else the interest. It's going towards my account.
Well, not only that, but like that's the thing about it, right? Like that's, you know, whether that's health, business, all the stuff like this, like the whole daily discipline shit. That's the key. I mean, seriously, that's the key to all this, right? Whether that's health, whether that's relationships with your wife, your kids, your business, right? If you made 2 offers on deals, like really good offers based on real numbers that you could talk to people, like you'd make a lot of money doing forced appreciation deals, right?
Yep.
Like I know I need to make more offers, right? And I'm busy. I'm freaking swamped. But if you can do that, same thing with, hey, this automatically comes out every single month and it goes into this, or you know what I mean? It goes into that saving account, or 10% of this profit on this deal goes straight over, whatever that is. All of a sudden you look up and you're like, holy shit. Like this has changed some things, and even if it's not your entire nut or your entire goal, it's a fantastic opportunity to, like you said, to force that savings, get paid on that, and then still have the access when you need it.
Yep.
So
that's the beauty of it. Yeah, the rate of return on the same dollar, right? 2 rates of return. It's one of the only ways I know of to do that. In fact, it is truly, like, when you look at the breakdown of how it works, it's the only way I know of to do that.
I just need to start an insurance company.
But yeah, man, when I ran the math, I remember after that presentation I shared earlier that we had done that with the brokerage, I sat down and I was just mind boggled. I was like, how have I not heard of this? And it's because it's not, look, number one, yeah, it's not for everybody, right? It's for people who have the discipline and are putting it into assets that can do the sorts of things that we do. But, mainstream advice almost always ends up with some kind of loop of going to Wall Street to pay for fees we've been trained, right? You have a 401k, you can't touch it. Don't look at it. You may be able to log in and look at it every day, but you can't access that money. And if you do, you're penalized. And so,
look at my Vanguard deal. Look, I won't be able to touch it for another 35 years, but there it is.
And I'm just griping about the financial planning industry now because I have so many people that walk in my door and they go,
who pays them? Who pays them?
Well, this is the issue is I sit down and they go, I followed so-and-so's radio personality show and I'm a millionaire now. And I go, great. You want to retire? Here's how much income that'll get you. And they go, what do you mean?
You cannot save your way. This side of unbelievable, just like we talked about, right? High earned income, whether that's flipping dirt, doing subdivides, building houses, whatever that is, and then putting it into other stuff. But like, unless you are a CEO of a top 100 or what, you know what I'm saying? Like, the bad thing is then your cost of living is usually high. And if you think you're going to keep that cost of living at $2 million a year or whatever the hell it is with no income based on, your dividend stocks, you're out of your gourd.
Yeah. Good luck trying to save up enough money to live on 3% of whatever you got at the end.
Well, and that's what we talk about, right? Like, and that's what Justin and Adam and things like this, like, talking about, there's a lot of people in the land space that they just want to make an extra $40,000, $50,000 a year.
100%. Yep.
And if you had the discipline to make that, say you spend another 20 of it, right? But you can squirrel away another 30, 40, 50 grand a year, which is not that hard to do, right? With your W-2 and all that other stuff. Like, in 30 years, that's not bad. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many different ways of doing it, right? Like, not everybody has to go full bore, try to take over the world, kick everybody's ass, all this other stuff like I feel like I have to do. I don't need to do that. That's just my messed up mental side. Well,
and maybe let's address that for a minute, because to this point, we talked about people that are in the business and doing this day to day, and we're around people that make a lot of money doing this. But if you're the person listening that's like, man, an extra 20,000 would change my life, just listen to what
it would. You've been there.
Then the exact stuff that Trevor's talked about in this entire podcast, you can do that with one deal.
Yep.
You can design your offers in such a way that one deal that will bring in. Now, it'll take time and it'll take some expertise, and you'll probably make some mistakes along the way. But guys, one land deal can do that for you.
Yep. Yeah, there's one real estate deal. But the nice thing about it is when it comes to land, you don't need the marketing money, right? And I've said this many, many times on my podcast, is like, you don't have to be a land investor. You need to be a land marketer, right? Because you'll find money. You might not like what they charge you. You may be 50-50 with somebody, but like, if you can market and find a good deal, you're going to make money. And the nice thing about it is that you don't need $50,000 to get started and build a house wholesaling deal. You know what I mean? Like, the amount of money that some of those guys spend and the margins, like,
that's crazy.
Idea. Like, they're like, oh, we made $2 million and in house wholesaling fees and all this other stuff, and you look at they're at 25 to 30% margins.
If that, yeah, I spent 1.8 to make 2.2.
Yeah. A real business is good. I mean, like even on the frac side, right? Like even in the Barnett, you know what I mean? Like there's, I know we did tons of stuff with Halliburton all over the country, and they were like, we're lucky to break even, but they were going for, hey, we got to keep our equipment running. We've got to do, again, a huge corporation is different than us, right? They can run in the red for a little bit if it means winning market share. You know what I'm saying? However, like, people see all this bullshit. Oh my God. And they use it. And I hate it even on my own podcast, because anytime I put numbers up there, how to make $100,000 in a year, it'll get twice as many hits as this conversation.
People want the shortcut.
You know what I mean?
There's a difference between a shortcut and speeding up the learning curve. There's a big difference. You're trying to cut corners versus relying on someone's experience to help you accelerate through the same path quicker. Yep. With all the ups and downs. There's a big difference. But you said this before on your podcast, and I'll probably say it again right now. I think about my wife at night, and a lot of spouses will probably, maybe people can relate. They'll be sending you pictures of listings of houses. Does your wife do that? She'll send me, oh yeah, look at this house.
No, not anymore.
Okay, not anymore.
No, she.
But here's the deal, right? Is you don't have experience, you don't have the cash, whatever. Guys like me and you have access to capital. So literally, if you're going to be up looking at stuff, man, hop on Lands of Texas. Try to go find a deal that makes sense. It could be on market. You don't spend any money on marketing. Find a good deal, negotiate a good deal. Send it to me with comps and say, hey, I think this makes sense. I can help fund it. You can help fund it. I have guys doing this right now that have sent me deals in the past of, well, guess what? I'll make a return on a deal, then I'll completely fund it and split it with you, because you put in the sweat equity and you brought it to me, and I have access to capital. I have no problem splitting that profit with you. Right? That's just half of something is better than half of nothing that I wouldn't have gotten, because I wouldn't have brought that deal in the first place. So if you,
and Jason, that's what I'm working on now, and we're getting closer and closer all the time to be able to work on the capital stack.
Yeah.
And do, starting with the guys in the group, right, where you don't have any money in the deal, and you're still getting a giant percentage of the headache. You know what I mean? Because you're running it, you're managing it. That's work, dude. I don't give a shit what you say. That's work. And more importantly, it's the stress of working with your own people. You don't want to let your own people down, right? All those guys in that tribe, because if Jason's got money in a deal, I'm not going to allow Jason to say, hey, I effed that up because this happened, right? Right? Because I didn't do what I needed to do. You know what I'm saying? And so because of that, there's real value to that. Coming from the point man on lots of deals already, And so, like, how we're pivoting and how I'm pivoting is working on the capital side of it, right? Standardizing that, doing all this other stuff, working where I can be that side. Because that, for me, is the last frontier when it comes to my personal growth and where I want to be with this business, right? I want to be those guys that goes more to maybe not true institutional, but the single family offices and things like this, right? Like, and works that way. And every time Jason has a deal, because I've taught Jason and I've taught Matt and I've taught all this other stuff, we speak the same jargon. We know exactly what we're looking at, all this other stuff. And Jason's like, man, these guys are still asking a little too much, but I got them down to $3,000 an acre, right? Outside of Ranger, right? And now we can make $2,000 an acre. If we use some leverage, we're looking at 90% or 78% or 90, whatever percentage on this deal, which we wouldn't necessarily do when we're all just jumping in on top of it. But now you're like, hell yeah, I'll do that with you, right? Because I'm playing with 8 or 10% money.
Yep.
Now we are them, but you're able to come in, Jason, and do it with no money in, because you're the one that brought the sweat equity in. You're the one that's going to run this son of a bitch, because I'm going to call your ass once a week saying, hey, where are we on this thing? You know what I mean? But that's how I see myself changing the quote-unquote land and me pivoting on the land side. You know what I mean? Because it's always moving. It's always a moving target, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I'm sure, again, like you said, we talked about this whole deal. Like, some of these people that are buying them at those prices, they have that kind of money. Somebody back there has that kind of money, right? And they're just happy with wealth preservation somewhere, right?
Parking.
Like,
Yeah, there's parking. Yeah, it could be 1031 exchange. We have no idea, right? They're just going to find a place to park it.
Yeah, hell, who knows, right? They may have sold 2 acres, right off the interstate that they made $8 million on, and now they have to do a 1031, and they're just like, fuck, what can we buy? What would we actually like to have? I don't give a shit if it's a deal or not, right? There's a lot of that stuff that we don't see the other side of the coin, and you're like, oh, these guys are overpaying. Maybe they don't give a shit, especially in North Texas. There's lots of money in North Texas. Yeah,
well, you've seen all the development out here with the Universal Studios come in and all the stuff that's going on here. The growth is
here's
crazy.
An example. There's a guy that real good family friend of mine that he's done. His dad had a place outside of Weatherford. There, it's like it was like 20 acres, and it used to be an oil field shop and all this other stuff. And he sold it for 2.9. You know what I mean? And they're already building subdivision right down the middle of that. And they're still going to make a couple $1 million on that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And he's like, thank God, because he's kind of in poor health and all that other stuff. And so it was a godsend for him to have that happen. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of these people that, we got 100 acres, off 35. Well, actually, especially with the 1031, that's a huge part, right? That's a huge part right now. And so I think that's what you're running into more than most of us, that are in some of these smaller markets.
Yeah. Well, and I also look and I also realize sometimes people can over pivot, meaning I think this is just the market cycle that we're in right now. We've been in such a low interest rate environment. Everybody can go get money for cheap. And so people have been used to being in that environment where they can go and do that. And now as that's shifted, as inflation has gone up, as rates have gone up, yes, the competition has gotten worse, but if it continues the path that we're on, or even just stays where we are right now, that may come back a year or two from now, right? And so the ability to recognize those things matters too. Not to just be like, nope, doesn't work anymore. This whole thing is broken and not working, and I'm out of here. Well, can you recognize those cycles? And some of that comes from experience. We're leaning on guys like you to be like, okay, your family's done this forever. How did this work during this time frame when it was a similar interest rate? How did it work when we were in this environment? And so that, to me, that experience, those eyes on stuff like that, and the ability to recognize it, that's worth the cost of any mastermind.
Yeah, for sure. But let's just kind of close out here and everything. But what are you, Jason, like we just said, what are you going to kind of do? And I'm going to kind of hold you to it. You're going to do it publicly on here. So where are you kind of feeling like you're not doing where you need to be, right, to hit those goals? Or you may feel great, right? Like you're doing exactly where you need to be, hitting that daily, like we talked about, like that daily discipline stuff, like with your business, nothing else, but just with your business. Is there anything that you could be better at or not better at, or one way or other? Like me personally, and I'll start off, like me, I'm a freaking unbelievable, dreamer, planner, all this other stuff. And when I get so busy because I put so much of myself into this stuff, right? I definitely need to build out more of, and what Clint Turner does really well, right? Like the virtual assistants and building in the systems and all this other stuff. I am effing terrible at that. And so my goal for the next 90 days is to clean that shit up, right? Clean up all of it, from the bookkeeping to the, you know what I mean? To allow and to delegate those kind of things. And I've been absolutely terrible at it, right? And so I'm going to get my shit together. I was working on that list when you called me earlier, right? These are the things, what am I doing every single day, and what can I can throw that shit off and let somebody else do it, right? That's where I'm falling down. So
yeah. Well, when I hear that, what I hear is you're a visionary and you have a hard time doing the implementing the integrator role. So you need to find someone to do the integrator role. Luckily, I lucked into that with having a friend of mine that happened to be an integrator. So that's the only reason that's gone well in my business, because I'm the same way. I don't want to be tied down in the systems of the stuff. I want to be moving and not be stuck in the monotony. So for me,
entrepreneurial ADD.
Yes. Right. I want to be progressing all the time. And if I'm not, I feel like I'm failing. And so it's easy to not have the discipline to do that stuff day to day.
Yep.
Versus find someone that loves it and that's what they live and breathe. And you get them outside of that and they're uncomfortable. And so that's the zone they want to be in. Funny how we're wired that way. But for me, I've gotten a lot of feedback from where I need to be as far as these subdivides and whether they're simple or more complex. My issue is with the engineering / financial planning brain of mine is I get so stuck in the weeds. I get so detailed on this stuff that it ends up causing me too much time, right? I spent a week and a half underwriting a deal going through 25 different scenarios. So my goal is to get to a point that I want to underwrite a deal a day. And my goal would be however many of those make sense, make let's say 5 offers a week.
Yep.
If those offers make sense. If I'm in at like 10% of whatever they're listed at, I'm not going to bother. But if I'm in that 50+%, at least close to,
you'll be busier than you can handle, for sure.
Right. If I did 5 a week, over time, I'll learn how many of those will play out, and then I can adjust that number and kind of go from there. My mind works in systems, but that's kind of my goal.
Follow up behind those offers, right?
Yep.
Just because they tell you to kick rocks now doesn't mean that you can't call them in 6 months when that thing's still on the market.
I'm laughing because there's a property that I went and underwrote, and it was on the market for like 3.4, and I just ran the comps. It's maybe worth 2, so I made an offer of like 1.65, 1.7, and they kind of laughed. That same listing's at like 2.4 right now, and so it's like, hey, it's been a year, and you went absolutely nowhere because you were listed it as if it were already cut up. You ready to? Or maybe I go and say, hey, I think I can get you to that price you wanted, but you need to partner with me in order to make that happen. So,
yeah. So you think? I mean, so we're just that daily discipline stuff, just on the making the offers. You think that's where you kind of?
Yeah, I want to underwrite a deal a day, and then the other thing that I'm trying to dial in is I can't compete where I have been. Right, there's too many people willing to operate on a 10% profit margin. So how far out, or what are the target markets that I need to be in? And part of this is experiential of making those offers and figuring out where the line gets drawn. You can kind of see the map behind me. I've been mapping stuff out, trying to figure out where exactly that lies. Don't look, that's my secret list.
Oh, no.
That's the secret county list, man.
The 10 secret counties.
No, but I'm mapping out. Okay, I know that this seems to be the zone that I can't compete in because these are the type of offers coming in. So if I can stick to this zone with these populations from this, I'm mapping this out, and so it's a continual process. But underwriting a deal a day and making those offers at the end of the week would put me in a better place of understanding. It's one thing to map it out, but to get the actual feedback and results, right?
Yeah, actually doing it right when it's actually income producing activities versus mental masturbation.
Your words. Oh, that's not coming out of my mouth.
No, it's absolutely true because I used to do the same thing. I was so damn smart I could underwrite anything you'd ever seen. Oh, you want to underwrite a 300 unit apartment complex, B complex? I can do this, this, and this. I can do self storage. I mean, I freaking write anything down, and it slowed me down from making offers. Because nothing matters until you buy something, because nothing matters until you sell something. And if you don't have the fucking inventory, you're just wasting your time.
Well, I'm a competitive person anyway. I'm part of deals in the mastermind group, but I want to be the best. Like I want to bring the most amount of deals with the most amount of return. And I'm such a driven person, that I've a lot of this time to do it. I just got to make sure it gets done. I got to do it quicker. That's my biggest hang up is I need to do
you gotta
rough
get close,
numbers.
right? Like you gotta get that 80-85% and pull the fucking trigger, right? Like that's where
the engineer in me
that's
is
the
like
hard part. Oh,
stabbing my eyes out because I'm like, well, but I didn't account for this, 20% variation. It's like, well, let's throw a round number on it. And call
that's
it
why I kept asking you if you made an offer or not, and you hated it. And I kept asking you whether or not you made an offer or not, and they're like, oh, we got offers at twice that, and you're like, how many other offers could I have made?
Yep, wasted a week and a half underwriting, waiting to hear back from a water company that could have thrown a number in there and been good.
Dude, it's doing the reps, man. Same thing when you're trying to hit a damn curveball. All of a sudden, you're jumping out of the way and thinking that you're going to get your head knocked off, and it's a strike. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, you just got to get the reps in. And the only way to speed that up is to get more reps in. And it sucks.
Yep.
Because it's never comfortable. It's never comfortable. You know
And it's
what I
like that with everything, right? Like
Yep.
I played soccer growing up. I played in college, and it's like other athletes want to come that are very good D1 football athletes, basketball want to come over and play soccer, and it's like they don't know how to control stuff with their feet. They've never done that. They've never done something, left-footed or all these different things. It's awkward and it's hard and it sucks. But until you've spent a month doing that, or you've gotten in 500 touches and you get a feel for things, it's the same thing. Like
you can't fight nature, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just the progression. Some of us are quicker than others. And the interesting thing with that compared to like soccer and all that is it's really just comes down to your propensity for activity. That's all it can come down to, right? Like the most successful people, that's what, Justin and those guys, like that's what they are absolutely fantastic at. Just move. Just move. You know what I mean? Like make the offers, just move. Don't worry about whatever. Because again, like we talked about yesterday, like only thing I can control is my output. I can't control input at all.
Yep.
And
that's this whole business, right? You can control the marketing, the output, the offers. You can't control what comes back.
No.
The chips fall where they fall.
And that's a hard part when you're trying to forecast, isn't it?
Coming from a corporate background, especially.
This year, right? Well, I need
everything
to do
was.
The offers. I need to do this. I need to do this. I need to do this. And then the first 3 months, it doesn't work out the way you wanted to, and then you're like, oh crap. I'm going to burn this entire list of stuff. Now I need to recheck. I need to look at all this stuff. The market has changed. Oh my God, land isn't good anymore. I need to start getting back into houses. Houses are going to come down. We can find some foreclosures now. You know what I mean? Or wait. On this podcast, I heard about now we can build self storage. Maybe we should be doing that. Maybe we should be doing self storage. You know what I mean? And you never get anywhere.
Oh.
So anyway. Well, hey, brother, I got to run. This is actually a landowner in Collin County about to call me. So I'll let you know if something pops up over there. I may need you to run over there and look at something. But thanks for coming in. Let everybody know how they can get a hold of you and not only the land stuff, but also the Infinite Making. Yeah,
so you can go to my website. It's just jasoncasco.com. My last name is Casco. So just myname.com. You can check that out if you want to set in a meeting for the infinite baking side of things. You ever want to talk land, just reach out. It's just my name everywhere, Jason Casco. I will give one caveat that there is a professional soccer player, I think from like Nicaragua, that has my exact name. So if it's a dark-skinned dude with long black hair, it is not me. I'm as white
you just
as
wish. You just wish.
I actually reached out to him and I was like, dude, stop competing with me. I'm trying to get my name on all these platforms. So I am not him. I am not from, I can't remember if he's Honduras or Nicaragua, but he's a professional soccer player, which makes it even worse. So, yeah, that is not me.
You should have told me that. I'm going to have fun.
Oh, man, it's great. I actually reached out to him and I was like, hey, what's up, dude? But yeah, you can jasoncasco.com or you can find me on Instagram, all Facebook, all the stuff is just Jason Casco.
Yeah. And Jason, like I said, if you're interested in the master class or anything like that, and he's also parts of other groups in different ways, and he's a big believer in learning and investing in himself. So if those are questions, if you're a newbie to all this stuff and you would like to talk to him, I'd definitely reach out to him. So
yeah, anyway. Happy to share any experience from any of that stuff and where I found value.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, brother.